Today I'm sharing the biggest mistakes I see when people drink wine, so I'm going to share what you should do instead and what to be mindful of when you're pouring your next glass of wine. Number 1 is pair your wine with the right type of food. One of the most popular ways to pair wine is with cheese, but cheese actually has a lot of acidity, specifically goat and sheep cheese. When you match it with red wine, which doesn't have the same acidity level but does have high tannins and alcohol most of the time, it will clash with the cheese. It's going to overall exacerbate the acidity and tannin of the wine, meaning it's going to completely dry out the wine and especially dry out the cheese you've paired it with. Number 2 is serve the wine at the correct temperature. Some early wine notes that you learn is that white wine should be chilled and red wine should not be, but there are a few notes to keep in mind when doing this. There are some exceptions. White wine basically has a point of perfection, but if chilled way too long, it actually mutes the flavors of the wine, meaning that it doesn't get to release its aromas. You won't really even get to taste the unique complex flavors. Now, if you keep white wine in the fridge overnight, it's not that big of a deal, but I do recommend that when you want to drink it, give yourself about a 10 minutes heads up. So take the wine out of the fridge, pour a glass, and let it sit about 5 minutes. And what you're doing is letting it breathe, letting it warm up a tad, and soon you'll be able to recognize the different aromas and it won't be as muted as if you just drink it right out of the fridge. The same goes for red wines. You can pop it in the fridge for about 30 minutes and then take it out, let it sit for a bit. You can decant it or let it sit in your glass. It doesn't have to be as long as 5 minutes, but you will be able to notice the aromas and the flavors of the red wine more so than you would in the white. So I would definitely recommend letting the white breathe for a little longer, and you don't have to pop the red wine into the fridge if you don't want to, but it does help release its nice aromas. The really cool thing about chilling your wine is that once you do take it out, try to take a few steps from the moment that you pour the glass and letting it sit for a while. You'll see how much it's evolved in the taste and the aroma, so that's a really fun way to kind of figure out what you're tasting and how it acclimates to room temperature. That does bring me to mistake number 3, which is not letting your wine breathe. If you have a decanter, definitely pour the whole bottle if you're planning on drinking it that night with friends or family or by yourself, no judgment, but decant the wine and let it sit for a while. It really allows for all those complex flavors to come out and you'll really have an enjoyable tasting experience. Sometimes, just like people, the wine just needs a breather. It needs a moment to warm up to the environment, to the people they're about to talk to, so treat it like a person, give them a little space. Mistake number 4 is not using the right glass. Now, you don't have to be super posh about this. You can use any type of wine glass for your reds or whites if that's what you have available. Having the right glass does make a difference in the tasting experience. So for red wines, you probably have heard that a full-bodied glass, meaning that it's very round, will help the aeration process of that red wine. There's a lot of layers to unfold in a red wine, so the more surface area it has to aerate, the more complex the flavors you'll be able to catch. For sparkling wines, I definitely recommend having a flute glass to keep all those bubbles in your glass, and it helps enhance the flavors as well. So when there's a smaller surface area for that sparkling wine, it'll help the carbon dioxide travel up and keeping those bubbles in the glass. For both sparkling wines and white wines, I also recommend holding it on the stem of the glass so that you're not warming it up too quickly with your hands. So for red wines, look for a rounder glass. For sparkling wines or champagne, look for that narrow flute glass. And for white wines, you can find one that's a little less rounded as the red wine glass. So it's gonna be pretty similar, but a little more narrow. To help with the aeration process of the wine, I definitely recommend giving the wine a swirl. And there is some importance to this. It's not to be pretentious. There is actually some meaning behind swirling the wine. To learn more about the importance of swirling your wine along with 3 other S's in wine tasting, click the video here.